Man, sometimes I swear these camera companies will really play in your face and try to get one over on you. Like, they'll hand us these shiny DSLRs all proud and smiling, knowing deep down that they've got serious issues like upon release. And then just watch, like, yeah, go ahead and figure it out. And the wild part is we really do every single time, which is pretty crazy to me. And honestly, it's one of those laugh so you don't cry situations, because deep down, all of us know that today's fancy mirrorless cameras with all the eye, bird, and UFO detections that they come with, they only exist because the DSLRs before them were out here committing some serious crimes. Some really serious crimes, and some of these cameras failed so dramatically you'd think they came with a sad soundtrack and just overall depression as soon as you got the receipt for it. And low-key, they had a soul that modern cameras kind of lost on the opposite hand of that. That old school, if you know what you're doing, I'm not gonna help you type of energy. And the last camera on this list, that one right there is really just the final boss of disappointment. So stick around to the end, because this one's gonna be a lot different from what we usually have on this channel. But that final camera on this list, if it did work the way that the camera company that made it promised, I'm telling you right now that the entire photography world in 2025 would be a completely different timeline. So here's what we're doing today. We're breaking down the top 4 DSLRs that had issues so serious they basically ruined their entire legacy. Like, these cameras had potential to be legends, but they chose violence instead and pretty much just crashed out. So this list is going to be based on history, design, reliability, technical value, and pretty much all that good stuff that we usually discuss. And in addition to what these cameras accidentally taught everybody. And by the time this video is over, not only will you know which cameras actually fell apart, but you'll understand why. And you'll see what mistakes shape the gear we rely on today, as well as what red flags to look for when you're buying a camera, and how to avoid getting played by a spec sheet that sounds prettier than it actually performs. So let's get straight into it. Starting to list off with camera number 4, we have the Nikon D600. So the Nikon D600 lands at number 4 because it's the camera that made a whole generation go, ain't no way y'all didn't know about this. This camera released in 2012 for around $2,000 USD, hyped up as the affordable full frame dream. And on paper, it looked like Nikon finally said, alright, it's time for us to eat good with this one. But then the shutter was like, actually, nah, none of that. This thing was out here flinging oil and dust all over the sensor like it was trying to season it essentially. Folks were shooting at f/16, seeing more dots than really anything you could ever imagine. People thought it was their lenses, their environment, or even just the universe itself. Then they realized it was the camera that was just ruining itself. Nikon tried to act like it wasn't that deep for some odd reason, until the complaints started sounding like a legitimate protest, and instead of fixing the D600, they just dropped the D610 like new phone, who dis? And that's why I would rank it here. It's not the worst camera ever, but it was one that kind of just betrayed the people in a way that we hadn't really probably seen before, especially within that time frame. And I feel like the lesson it teaches is that specs mean nothing if the sensor stays dirty like a toddler who just ate spaghetti or something, or barbecue. If you ever buy a used DSLR, especially full frame, test it at small apertures and don't let megapixels really hypnotize you. But real quick, if you're enjoying this, leave a like and subscribe. That helps me out a great deal. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by Christmas. I have a deal with my mom, so if you can subscribe and help us get there, that would mean a lot. And if you've subscribed already, appreciate you. You're a real one for that. And I want to say a special shout out to one of my subscribers for giving me the idea for this video. I was reading the comments for a video I dropped earlier this week, and a subscriber of mine mentioned that I should do a list about cameras that had serious issues, and I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. So I don't remember exactly what your username was, I have to look it up, but shout out to you, you know who you are, because I replied to you and I said I would do it, and hopefully you're here watching this now. But let's get straight back into the video. But trust me, if you thought spaghetti and barbecue was messy, the next camera wasn't even cooked fresh. It pretty much came out completely outdated, I'm not gonna lie. At camera number 3, we have the Canon EOS Rebel T6. Now the Rebel T6 takes number 3 because it basically released with a flip phone personality in a smartphone era. It came out in 2016 for about $549 with a kit lens and was marketed as the perfect beginner camera. But the T6 showed up already behind the times. There was no touchscreen when touchscreens were everywhere, autofocus was slow, and it felt like the camera needed a few shots of something to get started, and a sensor that was older than pretty much everything else that was coming out at the time. And it really didn't help beginners grow. It kind of held them hostage in the past. That's why I would say it ranks where it does. Not because it's actually broken, but really because Canon said, yeah, I feel like they'll settle for this, and I feel like the beginners kind of do deserve a little more than just leftovers. The lesson here, don't buy the cheapest new camera. Buy the one that'll actually keep up with you for a few years, that you can grow into. You need something that grows with you and not something that you outgrow within a couple of months or whatever the case may be. And outdated is one thing, but the next camera said, let me show you what true chaos looks like, and started overheating like it was auditioning for a cooking show. So number 2, we had the Sony A700. I put it at number 7 because it had the energy of a really good kid, but just had true behavioral problems. Released in 2007 for around $1,400, and Sony was basically like, watch out Canon and Nikon, we're in the game now. And honestly, they were close. The A7 looked tough and meant business, but it also would overheat faster than a car with no coolant in it. And the noise performance, it was a nightmare. High ISO shots looked like you were photographing a static channel. Autofocus was like, some days I'm locked in, other days I'm just spiritually unavailable. And it just seemed like Sony had the vision, but just not the stability with this one. That's why it sits so high on this list, because it could have been a monster. It just couldn't stay consistent for longer than like 10 minutes. And the lesson here is simple. Cameras are more than sensors, they're entire systems, and if the processing pipeline and heat management isn't right, all the specs in the world really aren't gonna save you. And if you think that's dramatic, this next camera didn't just mess up, it shook the photography world more than any of these other ones mentioned. So number 1, we have the Canon EOS 1D Mark III. I feel like this camera definitely earns that number 1 spot because it didn't just fail, it really did fumble its whole purpose in front of the entire planet. And for years, photographers were arguing about what the problem really even was. People blamed lighting, technique, humidity, mercury being in retrograde, like literally everything you could imagine. But eventually the truth really did come out. The autofocus was just straight up broken. Not quirky, not needs a firmware update, but it was actually broken. This thing released in 2007 for about $4,500 USD, and it was supposed to be the true alpha dog, or the flagship spec. This was supposed to be the camera for sports, wildlife, action, really all the big moments, and it missed all the big moments. The autofocus had stage fright. Bright light, it would miss out. Fast moving subjects, it would miss out. Anything important, it would just miss for the most part. Photographers lost shots, they lost money, they lost jobs, they lost sleep, they lost everything essentially. And Canon had to redesign parts and run damage control because the reputation hit, it was pretty loud for this one. That's why it's the number 1 spot on this list, because it's the camera that really did shake the entire industry into getting serious about true reliability. And the lesson is the most important one in all of photography. Focus is everything. You can have megapixels, speed, dynamic range, or whatever, but if you miss the moment, you really can't go back and catch it again. So let's go over a quick little recap of all the cameras we mentioned so far. At number 4, we had the Nikon D600 because it turned every sensor into a dirty windshield essentially. Then we had the Canon Rebel T6 at 3rd because it was outdated on arrival and it wasn't it. Then at number 2, we had the Sony A700 because it had talent but really zero stamina. And finally at number 1, we had the Canon 1D Mark III because its autofocus disaster literally changed how camera companies built pro gear. Each one of these cameras mattered because their failures pushed the photography world to do better. And honestly, we kind of did need that wake-up call, because if we were to let these cameras just slide through as if nothing happened, it would probably change the way a lot of cameras have been manufactured from these forward. Photography is all about learning, honestly. Half the time, the mistakes teach you more than the perfect shots ever could, and even the gear that flopped had lessons baked into them if you paid attention enough. So keep shooting, keep experimenting, and keep chasing the stuff that just inspires you to go out there and just be present and learn, whether you win or you fail. Just go out there and continue to be inspired even when the camera tries to ruin your vision. But if you want more lists and deep dives like this, check out more videos on my channel. I've got plenty, and if you enjoyed this one, leave a like and subscribe. That helps me out a great deal, as I have a deal with my mom. I need to hit 10,000 subscribers by Christmas, and we're getting there. We need just an inch more and we'll be there. So after that, we'll have to reassess and recalibrate a new goal or whatever the case may be. But if you have subscribed already, genuinely appreciate your support. That means a lot, and you're a real one for that. You really are. But again, if you haven't already, leave a like. Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section down below. Are there any cameras that just need to be on this list in your opinion? Let me know, and let me know why also in the comment section down below. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.